Yo, 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 what's going on? It's your boy Kuya P of the ShoPowSho. Before we get to this week's episode of the ShoPowSho, I want y'all to check out this amazing festival that I'll be collaborating with my folks over at the Mixed Asian Media Festival. Here we go right now. Check it out.
In 2017, we launched Hapa Mag, inspired by my blog, Miso Hapa.
For many of us, it has come to represent a space for us to express our mixed racial heritage with Asian or Pacific Islander ancestry.
To be Hapa is to be a part of a diverse and growing community with many perspectives.
In 2021, we made the decision to move to a broader future by renaming ourselves Mixed Asian Media, MAM for short.
In celebration of this re-identification, we present the first Mixed Asian Media Fest, MAM Fest, a glimpse of Mixed Asian and Pacific Islanders in their art forms, including art, film, theater, and dance.
In light of recent events, MAMFest will be an online event. However, we're hopeful that future years will allow us to meet in person and gather in physical space.
And have a creative project? Submit to MAMFest on filmfreeway.com.
Yo, what's going on? This is the NOC, the Nerds of Color, and we are back with another ShoPowSho. I am Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange, the Babinka boy, the Ado bro, and the leader of the Hala Hala homies and the Sinner Gang. But you know, I can't do this by myself, so of course I have to have the amazing Ates, you know, the Dinaguan Destroyers, the Tocino Terminators, the Lechon Ladies. What's up, Cataphoric and Viva Valentina?
Hello.
Hey.
What's up, Patrick?
Good. Kat, how are you?
Doing good, man. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Great
Ready
to
for
see
another
y'all.
Filipino story.
Yes. And we have another great one. I want to give a shout out to the Asian King of Comedy, my boy Loy Lee out there in Vegas, holding it down. Just heard an amazing story of how Loy and our guests met. So I can't wait to dig in more because that was fun. Let's bring him on. He has an amazing eye. He's an amazing photographer. You've probably seen his work if you've been traveling along the streets of LA. I saw some amazing video off of his website. We're going to get into it. You're going to be inspired. You're going to love it. And we're going to get another story in here of the great American Filipino story. Let's bring him in. Rollence Patugan. What's up? Hey, welcome. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you very much. Feeling good.
Yes.
Good. I want to say, first of all, thank you, Kuya P, Tina, and Kat for having me on. This is such an honor. And I know you guys have had some heavy hitters, Dante Bosco, legendary actor in our Filipino American community, and Diane Paragas, who just released The Yellow Rose, which you all have to see if you guys are listening to this, and all my friends. You gotta listen. You gotta watch that movie. So, and I'm so honored that you guys are inviting me to speak. And I'm afraid that you guys ended up with the Filipino Chinese discount.
Oh no,
No.
not at all, bro. You are awesome, dude. Have you seen your own work? Have you seen your own work, bro? Come now. And you have a billboard. Was it Highland?
It was on a fountain in Highland.
Yeah.
That was a year ago this month, actually several days ago, a year ago of this month. And so some of my work was featured on a billboard that was converted to public art on the corner of Fountain and Highland. So for those of you out listening from LA, or even who left LA, know exactly where that is. It's a very busy street, and my name's up there with my work, which I thought was a milestone. We'll get into that, but that was definitely a milestone in my career.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you are also a heavy hitter.
Hello. Exactly. Brush them shoulders off, bro.
Yeah, it's T-ball. It's T-ball, right? Everyone gets a hit.
That's awesome. Well,
right,
let's
so
start off.
Yeah,
we
go ahead, Tina.
always like to know, where are you from? But like, where are you really from?
Now, I got to preface this. Normally, when I get asked that question, I become the angry Asian or the pissed off Pinoy.
Well, I mean, I want to know too, like, where are your parents from?
But I've been working on my anger issues, and I'll let you know about that. So I was born in Cebu, Philippines. So Cebuano ako. My mom was also born in Cebu City. My dad is from Davao, but he's from a province somewhere near Davao. So that's the origins of my parents. My dad, story behind him, he moved to Cebu, I would say, I guess right before he was going to attend college, the age of going to college there. He actually had run away from home. He told me that if he stayed in his province, that he would end up tending the family store, the sari-sari store. So he had a twin sister also, Auntie Virgie, peace. She's up there right now, but she left. She bounced also. But not to worry. My dad comes from, I think, 7 or 8 siblings total, and he's the eldest. Actually, him and twin sister were the eldest. So there are other siblings who ended up running the family business, but
Passing the buck.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when you got some dreams, right? You want to get out of this small province town and go to the big city, Cebu City, right?
Sure.
So he wanted to go there primarily for college, and that was to educate himself and just to have a better life. He saw something more than where he came from, and I understand that too. So that's where he met my mom in Cebu. So that's how they met. And they, like a lot of Filipinos at the time, this was the 70s, they wanted to come out to this land, the United States, for the American dream. And so they ventured out, and we landed here. So everyone's story is sort of different. My mom had, I guess, her best friend come out. It was New York, I think, at first. Her friend landed there, sort of established something there. Had my mom come out, and then my mom sent for me and my dad. This was 1977, and then we landed in Los Angeles, and specifically Hollywood, which a part of Hollywood now it's considered West Hollywood. So that's where we ended up landing and starting our life there.
So how old were you before you came over?
I was 3 years old. So my memories actually really start in West Hollywood. And the funny thing is, it's like the internet now. You could Google map any location, and just before this interview, I actually just Google mapped my old apartment that we first landed in. It looks very different from the family photos, but you could tell a staircase is still there. The structure is still there. It's painted differently, but it's still there. And it's crazy how you could just do that now. And I look back at that, and just like a lot of memories just kind of came back, with like big wheel races in the driveway, all the kids hanging out in the street. And And this is, even though this is the 70s of Los Angeles, late 70s Los Angeles, from my experiences, my neighbors were We Are the World, basically. It was a Benetton ad. It was everybody. So that's kind of what I've experienced since childhood. Just basically everybody in the neighborhood of different eye shapes, different skin colors.
It's pretty diverse.
Yeah, very diverse. So that's kind of been my first memories of just being alive was West Hollywood at that time, and these kids who were just very diverse.
I love it. What would your parents say about young Rollence?
They say that I love to make friends a lot, and I think that's quite true. I think I do remember, like, Halloween, the kids would get the costumes in this box with the mask on it, right? Everyone had Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Remember those costumes,
mask.
right?
Yeah.
So of course, since I like to make friends, it was in my character to pick Casper, the friendly ghost. That was my costume. I like to make friends, and I even picked, out of all the things I could have picked, I like Batman, but somehow I picked Casper. That was like my costume. That was like my true nature, to be like friendly with everybody. So
that is so sweet.
That's what they would say. That I was very friendly, maybe. And I think that just jumping forward a little bit into high school, probably that carried on because I talked a lot. I got called out on talking way too much in high school. Just like, shut up, Rollence. Just shut up right now. You're talking way too much. Just socializing with everybody around me. So, okay.
Awesome. What were you into as a kid? Like, what were some of the, like, were there any indicators of stuff that you were doing that would reflect, your current life now? Like, what were you into?
I think as a kid, just normal kid stuff, playing Hot Wheels and just, big wheel races in the driveway there, hanging out with kids. I think nothing really indicated to where I was going to go until I would say junior high, where I was introduced to my first computer. And so moving forward, we lived in West Hollywood for a little bit, and then we ended up moving into the burbs, Baldwin Park, which is in San Gabriel Valley, SGV as we call it, from around the area. And it didn't dawn on me until, like, I guess junior high, when we were lucky enough to get these Apple IIe's. That's how old I am. I'm mentioning this computer, right? Apple IIe, but when they first came out, somehow our school district, our history teacher, got his hands on these computers, and he ended up teaching a computer literacy class that never existed in our junior high. So that class just blew my mind in terms of what this device was in front of me. And even at that time, I didn't know that was going to be like a precursor to anything that would help my career. But, fast forward after that, I ended up, being a software developer, which is what a coder now, what people call. And, then jumping forward after that, where I'm at today with photography. But that's like fast forward, really, really fast forward. Let's go back to that. So yeah, it was computers, I'd say, at an early age, like technology that was sort of kind of sparked my interest.
Okay.
Oregon Trail was really influential.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
For sure.
So, like, artistically, can you reflect on anything creative that maybe were also additional C's? Like, were you like into comic books? Were you into film? Because I think I also saw that you also dabbled with acting as well.
Yeah. What Filipino doesn't, right?
I'm starting to wonder.
Right?
What self-respecting Filipino doesn't want to act, or at least sing karaoke at a party?
Here we go.
But we can that's a whole other episode right
Are
there.
you dancing, Rollence? Do you dance?
That should be an episode.
Yeah, I dance. So Dante Bosco break. I was a b-boy. We call it breakdancing back then.
Yeah.
Right? So at an early age, this is like elementary school in the 80s. Hip hop, man. That's the first thing I ever heard. I've never heard this music before, and it was just mesmerizing. It made your body want to do certain things and move. Right? You couldn't help it. Well, at least for me.
Yeah.
And so this was like I'm in my friend's garage with a cardboard out. And my friend Filipino, his older brother was a DJ, so of course he's gonna have all the records 12-inch mixes, like long extended plays of these hip hop tracks. And there we are, just on this cardboard, breaking our, destroying our hips. Well, we don't care. We're young and we're learning. But that, interestingly enough, my love for dance later on in my adult life still sort of transferred over, because I ended up dancing salsa for a few years.
Oh, hell yeah.
I ended up hitting the clubs out here in Los Angeles, and my nickname, well, I gave myself the nickname El Chino Latino.
I love it.
Because I spoke a little bit of Spanish, I danced a lot of salsa, and it was just, you didn't see a whole lot of Asians on the floor at the time. This was the early 2000s. So like, who's this Chino here just tearing it up on the floor? And he speaks a little Spanish too. What's going on with that guy? So that's another life right there.
Put him.
I'm not gonna lie. Back in the AOL days, because again, I'm old like you. my AOL name was Esta Lova instead of Esta Loca, Esta Lova. Anyway, so
we learn something new about you every day.
Yeah.
So, all right. So creatively, so you got into dance and stuff like that, and so just any early inspirations that you can.
Yeah, going back to that. So in high school, my best buddy, Steve, if you're watching this from Minneapolis right now,
Shout out.
Hey, Steve.
shout out. He says to me in junior high before we go to high school, he's like, "Hey, have you picked an elective yet?" I'm like, "No, I'm not sure what I want to do. Let's take drama. Let's take acting." I'm like, "Hell no, I ain't gonna go in front of people. I'm afraid of that." He's like, "That's the way to get rid of that problem. To just take this class. You're gonna be in front of people. You're gonna get rid of that phobia really quick." So it's his fault, Steve. He's not even Filipino, man. He's Salvadorian American. So it was his fault getting me into that acting bug. So my freshman year, I took that class and I met Marquita Williams. If you're watching this, drama instructor. I'm still in touch with her today, and that got me hooked on this idea of expressing yourself through a character. And of course it dealt with my public speaking and all that fears. But beyond that, I discovered this craft that was very personal, yet you're being personal out in front of everybody. And so I thought that was a kind of a beautiful thing to share a moment, whether it's a live audience or in front of a camera on film. It's permanent. So that, so it's, I guess, I grew up in a traditional Filipino household where I listened to your other podcasts where you discussed about like, well, yeah, you're going to be not an artist when you go to college. That's for sure. You're going to be an engineer. You're going to be, some sort of professional, which I understand because I grew up with very humble beginnings. The apartment we lived in West Hollywood when we first came here it was actually livable. You could actually go to a minimum wage job and actually live there. That's how different the times were. My mom ended up getting like a bank teller job, and my dad was working a stock clerk at a grocery store when we showed up here. So it was like minimum wage jobs, but you could live in that West Hollywood at that time. So of course, having that sort of tradition or sort of that notion of the immigrant, immigrant families where they want to just survive. You don't want your children to pursue art. That's for sure. So all throughout high school, I did 4 years of acting and drama, but it was always like, Rollence, that's a hobby, right? That's not your professional career of choice, right? And I'm like, I guess not. But since we're talking about this, if there's anything I could say to would-be parents out there, parents now, their kids, you could guide them and show them the way, and based on your experience. But if a kid is going to have something inside them that they want to do, it can only be delayed and suppressed just for so long, and at some point it's going to manifest itself in some way. And I say this because I went to college with I graduated with an IT degree, information technology, very technical. It was under the business school administration, and I did work in that era, in that career for a little bit. But at some point in this journey, which we could talk about, I ended up gravitating back to acting, and now behind the camera, and now I'm teaching photography. So the whole creative side it was just delayed. It's always there, and it just manifests. And if you have the guts and the courage, and of course the resources and fate and all those things combined, something can possibly happen along the way. But so to answer your question, yeah, there's always been that something there, and it's definitely manifested later on in my adult life.
Wow.
Oh, I love that. That's real talk, and thank you for sharing that, because that it needs to be said. And man, that hit more than you know, because we were just having a conversation before we started on my own path right now. So thank you for that. We touched a little bit as you were starting on the Filipino upbringing, and I want to get into that now in this period. Can you talk on, growing up Filipino in LA and how, and maybe knowing that you are Filipino, did you experience racism and the difference and all that?
We don't have time for this conversation, but
it's a deep
highlights.
One. It's a hard one.
Highlights, yeah.
highlights. So, like I said, I grew up in the SGV in Baldwin Park, which, by the way, is the home of the very first In-N-Out burger for any.
Hey!
I love In-N-Out. I am the biggest In-N-Out fan. Like, people are always like, "Ew, really In-N-Out?" And I'm like, I don't have it here.
And when I was growing up, I had no idea how popular that place was. It was, and I just thought that stand that we had was like the only In-N-Out burger stand ever. But little did I realize, people coming in from different parts of town or there's other In-N-Outs everywhere. It was so popular. But anyways, that's Baldwin Park. It's known for that. So Baldwin Park, and predominantly SGV, it's predominantly, I would say, a Latino population. So I grew up in my particular neighborhood of Baldwin Park, predominantly Mexican American. I would say there's a mix of other Central Americans there. So I grew up as a Filipino American in a Latino neighborhood. If anything, my lens, talking about photography, my lens of the world has been through a Filipino American growing up in this particular type of a neighborhood. So I feel very comfortable in different parts of LA where it's a Latino neighborhood. It's mi barrio. It's always mi barrio, right? I'm gonna feel at home. I speak a little bit of Spanish. I understand the culture. I grew up going to quinceañeras. A lot of most of my friends are Latino, so very comfortable in that. And that's where salsa kind of came in later on. I just felt like, oh, this is home.
Yeah.
I've been hearing this music, different types of Latin beats growing up. And later on, when I just like, I need to dance, but I don't want to break dance right now. I want to do something else. And it was salsa. So growing up there in my neighborhood is interesting. When we arrived in Baldwin Park, we ended up moving into this tract home development. It was actually 2 blocks of tract homes. And so there was already a neighborhood that existed prior to us arriving. And I say us because when we arrived, we didn't really coordinate this, but the houses across the street from us were the older homes. And here we are on the new side of the street, all the new homes. I'd say 6, 7 homes were the tract homes, and I think out of those homes, 4 were Filipino families.
Oh wow!
We didn't coordinate this, okay? But I will say one of the families we didn't know about, my Uncle George and Auntie Gloria, their family. We knew they were gonna, because they lived in Hollywood near us, so they kind of coordinated with my parents. Oh, we found this housing development. Let's look into it. So we knew they were gonna we were gonna be living near them. But the houses in between, they were like 3 houses away. The houses in between somehow became Filipinos too.
They just sensed you, like that Filipino sense kicked in.
Right. So here you are with a predominantly like Mexican American neighborhood, and then other brown folks show up, and I got to tell you, like, there's gonna be people listening out there who may not understand, like, Chicano culture and what's a cholo and cholas, are they all gangsters and all that? I lived across the street from a family, Chicano family, and their kids, you would see them dressed up as what you would think as cholos, but we never had any beef with them ever, right? It's just a culture. It's like anything else, and people will attach something to it when it becomes news because who robbed this place or who did that, and it's a vision of this person, and then they're going to attach that vision to this behavior, hence here we are 2021 still doing that shit, just seeing somebody, way they look, and just pretty much just summarizing them based on how they look, right? Without taking the time to know who they are and their culture. But anyways, going back to that, we never had problems with our neighbors across the street, and they never had problems with us. In fact, it was actually a good mutual exchange of culture because they got to learn about Filipino culture and we got to learn about Mexican American culture.
And it's all Hispanic. It's all pretty heavily influenced by Spain and all that, because we were all colonized by the Spanish.
That's
but there are a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, that's true. So, and when I was going to high school and I took Spanish classes, and I didn't realize, like, wait a minute, I understand this is Filipino. And they're like, no, it's Filipino. So, and I go to history, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, it's not Filipino, it's the Spanish. That's right. So education is very important. Learning about your history and learning about the history that isn't told to you at school. Like, I had to look this up in terms of, like, well, how come, like, we have a lot of Filipinos have a lot of the Spanish surnames. My last name it's not even that. My last name is so Filipino, it's not even Spanish. So
that's a flex.
I had to, and I researched, like, why, like, you know, where did all this come from? Because I know it's not every single person in the Philippines is a descendant of King Philip, you know, as much as they want to claim being part Spanish, this and that. I think I read somewhere, I can't quote the source, but it was like, since Philippines was under the rule of King Philip, he sent his diplomats out there to the barangays and said, you got to pick from this list of surnames because now you're under Spanish rule. So starting with the A's, Alfaro, you know, that's my cousin's last name, Alfaro. So, you know, and so that's part of the story of how the origins of that. And of course, there's the language, of course, of the Spanish and Filipino. But yeah, we're all kind of a mix there with the Spanish culture. But going back to the neighborhood of Baldwin Park, we found the similarities, like in food. They have a version of adobo. We have our version of adobo, right? They have a version of menudo and so forth, right? So, and that was sort of like, for me, like almost like an icebreaker with some of the friends I kind of befriended growing up, because like, wait, you understand that? It's Spanish. And it's like, well, yeah, we have adobo at home, but it's probably a little different, but it's what we call it. And it became this thing where you have something in common with somebody. And next thing you know, you're like besties, you know. So
that's cool. Yes,
I love
that's
it.
really interesting, because I think there are so many similarities, as you said, with them both kind of being understand Spanish rule and just a lot of, you know, the colonialism and shared history. But also, like, in America, we have we have two minorities where one is held up as like the model minority, and one is held up as, like you were saying, like there's this stereotype, all these negative connotations, but they're so similar that I think maybe as part of these communities, we're just like, how are you even getting here? Like, how did you even, you know, how did these attitudes kind of get so different?
Right. And going with that model minority myth, I am Chinese also in heritage, and I pass more Chinese. I pass more East Asian than Filipino. So growing up, even when I would encounter other Filipinos, there was this sense of like, you're not Filipino. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am. But there's always this sense of denial. Like, I had to prove to them that I like how Filipino I was, even though my eyes say something different, but like my last name definitely says that. It's not even Spanish, right? So I felt like I was an outsider in my own community. That was a small community within a Mexican American community. So here I am living in a minority community with a minority community, and I'm in a minority within that minority community. How many freaking boxes do I need to, how many walls do I need to build?
Yeah.
So I was an angry kid. As friendly as I was, there was a lot of this stuff inside that fortunately I used acting to release a lot of that stuff.
The arts.
Yes. And then in my adult life, I have this now, right? To be able to channel that. And honestly, I can't really tell you where I'd be or how I would be if it wasn't for that release. So the arts is so essential during this time, during any time in a person's development. And even when you are in adulthood, it still can be a release, a direction for positivity. And I think it's just so important. So having that in my life, and I didn't even realize it till later on in my adulthood, I'm so thankful and grateful that I was open enough to gravitate to it. And maybe didn't listen to my parents, maybe just for a little while, not listen to them, like concentrate on the arts instead, just for a little bit. So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, so that was my exposure in growing up, multicultural, and having the influence of Marquita Williams as a drama teacher, what kind of sparked it really for me, and I just kept going forward from there.
Awesome. Wow. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's real talk. And it's, yeah. Did you feel sometimes it was like the racism sometimes was more so from our own people, more so because it's like we always put black, white, or a POC against white, but then sometimes was our own people that we were having the issue with sometimes.
Yeah. So there's there's colorism.
Yeah.
Right. There's the lighter skinned Filipinos. There's the darker skinned ones. I know they mean well, but like your relatives, don't stay outside too long and you get too dark, that kind of stuff. And I grew up with that, and I in one ear out the other, because I knew have been living here for that many years already, and just having my diversity of friends, I knew that was just not the right thing to be saying or have the right attitude to be having, because we're all Filipinos.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in this, and we're just all human beings, just regardless of what ethnicity you are. It shouldn't matter. But I did recognize that lighter is righter, and that's I didn't think that was correct. I didn't believe in that, but I would see that for sure. But that's one of the things that we're still dealing with, I believe, and even in the Black community, it's the same thing. That's sort of kind of a discussion to have as well. So it's unfortunate, but I think what's so important about what you guys are doing is to, your own lens, how you see the world, and being Filipino American on the East Coast versus being a Filipino American on the West Coast. There's two different ways that Filipino can still grow up differently and experience America differently, even though we're all ethnically from the same people. And I think it's a beautiful thing. It makes us richer, I believe. So I my cousins who I grew up with, I'm sorry, my cousins who are from the East Coast are from, some of them are from Boston. They grew up there. Shout out to Candy, Ken, and John. It's funny. They're like, Hapa, but with that Paktakan, Havid, Yad accent. Not a Filipino Hapa face. So when they would come over summertime, when I was a kid, I just stare at them like, man, you got some weird accent. They're like, no, you got the accent. That's true. We all have accents because we all speak from where we're from, right? So, but I'm just looking at them like, wow, that's just some wild accent you're coming from. It's not even Filipino.
Ends of the spectrum there.
Right. So I think having that experience, knowing that I got relatives who grew up in a completely different world out there, and kind of going through some of the same things I'm going through, but just a different flavor, the New England flavor of it, kind of helps us and help me tell myself, well, I'm not alone in this. Some of my family's going through kind of this stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's move it to college, and you pursuing engineering, but then you kind of flipped it until you followed where you wanted to do. Let's just talk about college Rollence now. And we also become a little bit more woke in college a little bit, what was that experience for you? Where did you go? And let's talk on that.
So I went to Cal Poly Pomona. I did the safe route by first enrolling in like electrical engineering major. And I'd say about a year in, I was like, this isn't me. First of all, I wasn't that great in calculus. So model minority myth number 2 or number 3, number 4, there's this thing called a calculator that's perfectly good, and I ain't doing integrals or whatever in real life. Yes. So calculus was not for me. And I just felt like this is not what I envisioned that my career to be. What happened to like using the, computers, and that was fun in junior high. So there was this thing called computer information systems in the School of Business, and I thought, what's that? Why is it in the School of Business? This is 1990, okay, 1991. All right, internet wasn't even full blown at all. So I'm like, what is this information technology? What is this thing about? Let me just go into there, and I ended up learning how to code in there and code for business systems. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up going to college, getting a degree in School of Business, but it was information technology. But at the same time, I took a theater class. that like I said earlier,
electives.
Electives, right? That creative fire, that whatever we have, it's still going to burn there. You know, if you allow it to, if you give a little fuel to it, maybe you can do more with it. So I took a theater class there just to kind of keep my foot sort of in a creative side, because there wasn't a whole lot of creativity in the information technology field. So I graduate from there. I didn't really touch acting, not for a while. I get into the industry working in downtown Los Angeles. I worked at the gas company tower. I think it's called Deloitte now, but they filmed the movie Speed in that tower. And I was there for several years. And the funny one was really weird. Downtown LA, you'll see a film set. This is pre-COVID. You'll see a film set on any given day, on any given corner in downtown LA, because they want to shoot like a Gotham type of city. Downtown would be it, and on the West Coast. Pershing Square, I could see from my floor, and I just saw a film crew down there. The weird thing is, I just said it out to the universe. I said, you know what? I'm going to be down there one of these days, meaning I'm going to be in front of the camera and doing something. Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? In 2002, 2003, I was filming a Jack in the Box commercial down there. I was no longer working in the gas company tower. I already changed careers. I'm down there. I call my buddies up. Hey, look down. That dude waving, that's me. I'm filming a commercial right now. Why don't you come down here? And they were just all like kind of not in shock, because they knew I was pursuing the career already. But it was like, hey man, you did it. You said you were gonna stop, doing this computer thing and pursue acting, and here you are on a commercial. And that was like sort of like, I call it my full circle moment, because I got a picture of myself sitting in front of my trailer, my name on it, and then behind me is the building where I used to work in. Two lives all in one shot. And I was like, tears on a Jack in the Box commercial, but I was tears. It was the wrong preparation, okay, for the role. It wasn't a dramatic role altogether. It was a comedic role, but I was going through a moment there, and I had to let it go through myself, and just like absorb it. And that moment, I felt like all those times, the risks I took, it was worth it. It was all worth it. And even though I'm not acting now, I still look fondly back at that and say, you know what? Take a risk, because you just never know where you're going to end up. And it doesn't mean you got to stay there after you've taken that risk and maybe it works out for you. But maybe there's something else along down the line that you end up going. Your path may change, and that's okay. You just adapt, right? But if you don't ever take that risk, you have failed 100%. So you've got to take that leap of faith, Otherwise, I would be wondering in that cubicle upstairs in the gas company tower, what if I did this and what if I did that? I don't have that what if anymore, because I did it, and it sort of landed right there, literally, where I put it out in the universe. That's kind of scary when you say something.
That's on manifesting.
Oh, you guys believe in that kind of stuff? Like, you just put it out there and it's going to happen? Yeah.
I believe in the power of positive thinking for sure. And using it as a tool to get the things that you want, like, more power to you. Is it a magical thing? Like, if you just ask the universe nicely for the things that you want, you'll get it? No. You definitely gotta work for it, gotta make it happen. But being able to verbalize your goals and being able to just be like, I have this fire in me and I have this need, I'm going to go fulfill it. And like, for you, it was that coming full circle moment. And like, that's awesome. I'm like,
And another thing to that, like, kind of rewinding a little bit, back in elementary school, we had some really great teachers that would take us to art museums, and we went to the Getty and the LA County Museum of Art, and we studied like the Renaissance artists, Da Vinci, Michelangelo. So one time, again, this is weird. I'm like, I'm appreciating all this artwork. I'm like, yeah, one of these days I want to have my stuff hanging on a wall. Last year, my stuff's on a billboard. It's like this. What else can I say? I want world peace. That's all I want. How about that, right? Can we just
pandemic? Oh.
I know. Can we just end this thing and just all get along, right? That's kind of what I want, right? So, but I think that's kind of scary moments. You're putting that stuff out there. I think that's holding yourself accountable also as well, to a certain extent, for you to follow through on your own thing by just saying it out loud. Like, writing it down is one thing, but like, you gotta just say it out, say it out loud. Something happens when you do that. All right.
It's like courage. It's speaking it and having the courage to claim it is maybe just enough, oomph to start you all on the path. It all, this, what do they say? The journey starts with a single step, and a single step starts when you're like, I'm going to move.
Right.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah. So can you talk on that step? So you visualize that you were looking out, you saw the commercial happening. Yeah. So tell us about those steps that led you from going to that.
Right. Yeah. So at the time I was a full-time employee there at the Southern California Gas Company. And I loved my job. I actually loved coding, because remember, I was introduced to computers at a very young age, and I learned how to code when I was in 7th grade. The kids now, they're doing it, coming out of the womb. They know how to code, right? He's like 7th grade. This guy, such a lolo, man, so old. But like 7th grade, man, that was, and for a predominantly working class community to get that kind of education and those computers, I look back at that, that's like a miracle in itself for us to get that opportunity and that changed lives, changed my life. I was at time, so I did enjoy my job. I loved being a software developer at the time. And then I got offered, this is 2001 now, which is the internet 1.0. Venture capitalists are throwing money at these small companies to create some website, right? I don't want to bore your viewers here, but this is when the utility was deregulating at the time. And we created a website. If you own a laundromat, you own some business, and you want to get your energy cheaper, you go to our website. This is like unheard of. This is 2001, all right? We were getting funding from a company in Massachusetts. Again, the Boston connection. This is funny. So we were getting funding from energy company out there, funneling money into our startup. And our startup was in Santa Monica by the beach. So let me show you this, kind of envision this thing. 20-something-year-olds running the company. This guy got a surfboard on his cubicle. We got a conference room table that serves as a ping pong table during recess. It was kids running the company. This is early 2000s, and I'm making as much money as what a doctor would make, and I'm not even 30 yet. And my dad's like, "What do you do exactly?" And and I'm like, I just write a bunch of letters on the computer, and I make stuff happen on the screen. And so that's 2001. And then, of course, that year it broke. The market fell, right? All of my colleagues could not find work for a good amount of time. The market fell. I want to restate that for internet professionals, like IT professionals. A lot of people still had their jobs, but all those venture capitalists putting money in these .coms, all gone. You had all these unemployed IT professionals out there looking for work. So the market was saturated and flooded with unemployed professionals that were high performing, right? Willing to work for whatever now. So I said, I'm going to go to Costa Rica because at the time I was taking Spanish classes at Santa Monica College and taking salsa classes at Santa Monica College. Again, always one foot in the door somewhere else, right? Always. So one of my classmates said, "Hey, you surf, Rollence? Have you heard of this student exchange program in Costa Rica where you just live with a family and you go to school every day and you learn Spanish?" I'm like, "What?" Okay. So I end up packing my bags and going to live in Costa Rica for a couple months. And that was the thing that changed my life too. I went there by myself, brought my surfboard, lived with a family, didn't speak any English, so I had to speak Spanish every single day. And that really elevated my level of Spanish, and I toured the country just surfing. And I came back, and people were still unemployed, right? And I said, this is a great time to become an actor. Out of all that, now is the time to become an actor, right now, right? Because, hey, most actors are unemployed anyways. So why don't I'm not going to be an outsider. I'm going to be just like them, struggling, just trying to find some freelance
I
work.
also don't want a job.
Right. So I ended up going to Lee Strasberg Film Institute in Hollywood, method acting school, which is the same school my drama teacher went to. So I got in contact with her. This is how I reached out to her and reconnected with her. I said, guess what? Your old student from high school, guess what he's doing? He's pursuing acting. So she was kind of like my mentor through this stage. This is 2001 now. And I took classes there, did a ton of student films, did some commercials. After a while, like 5-6 years, I saw, I was watching Dante Bosco, his movie debut, and then he talked about Better Luck Tomorrow. I thought when Better Luck Tomorrow came out, that was it. The door was busted down. Thank you for opening it. Here we come through this door, right? It was just silence after that. As Dante said, we didn't follow it up. And there's a lot of reasons why we didn't follow, because of lack of opportunity, representation, resources, right? But that wasn't followed up. But I was so just ready to go after that movie came out. This is our time. Our time is now. And it didn't happen. I still struggled. Didn't get the right auditions that I wanted to. Just angry. I don't want to play Kung Fu Guy number 3. I don't. I really don't. I don't know Kung Fu. I know Aikido. It's different. It's the difference. So, but it was, I just got really frustrated. And ironically enough, I got cast for this indie feature that a good friend of mine was producing and she was starring in. And, as you do in the industry, you help each other out. You look out for those who need the work as well. And she's like, hey, I got this role here. You still got to audition because you got to go in front of the producers, but I think this should be for you. It's a non-really descript character. It could be any ethnicity, really. April Wade, this is for you, saying hi. So I went to the audition, got cast in this feature film, and we flew out to Arizona and shot the film there. I did my scenes there, flew out there. And it's ironically at the time, this was already 2006. I was so frustrated with the industry, the lack of opportunities. I was taking photography classes. I went back to school again, and this time to re-educate myself and learn about this black box.
So why photos though? What made you, was it something like you already like to do? Like how did that come into being?
I think in the 90s, I've always liked, I had appreciation for both fine art and commercial work and where they blended in together. You look at the work of Herb Ritz and Abaddon. Herb Ritz with the Calvin Klein ads of 1990s where you had the nice black and white. And black and white, when that came in the 90s, like, why is there black and white? That's an old way of shooting anything. But he made commercials like into art form, right? Shooting that. So I kind of got influenced just looking at this imagery. And I thought to myself, you know what? If I become a photographer, I cast myself as a photographer and I tell my stories. So I'm not a writer, but I could definitely try and tell a visual story. I know how to tell one in front of the camera. I think I could tell one behind the camera too. So that interested me, and I went back to school and studied that. And of course, having been in the industry with all these performing artists, I had access to my subjects. I'm like automatic models, all ready to be in front of the camera. What do you want me to do? Ready to go. So, I had that access to learn and shoot with these people who are already working in the industry, and I think I'm bringing everything I've known, and as you live this life, you experience more things. You just bring it with you, and you kind of just push it onto whatever you're doing. At some point, I said, I want to create work that addresses what I've been going through since I was a kid. And that's why you see a lot of this stuff behind me, is that, as Gordon Parks said, the African-American photographer from the 40s to the 1970s, who was a photojournalist, and he said his weapon was the camera. That was his weapon of choice, because he was able to showcase plight, poverty, and the condition of the African Americans in America during his time. And so that is like such a powerful thing. And I'm thinking, why not now, right? Why not still do that? We still can do that. We do that with moving pictures. Mm-hmm. We do that with still photography, any kind of art form, murals, whatever, podcasts, right? We're doing this right now. So I think there's always been that thing where I want inside me where maybe I did want to tell a story. Maybe it wasn't necessarily in front of the camera. Maybe it's behind the camera. Maybe that's kind of where I'm at right now. So that is not to say that I wouldn't mind getting back on the saddle and on the stage again. But that's another thing. I know, Patrick, you're going back in there too, which I think that's awesome. Going on that journey once again. I think you got to live some life, and then maybe come back to it, because then you have so much more to bring to the work, whatever it is, whatever medium it is. So I'm a full believer in that.
Oh, bro, thank you. I appreciate that, man.
Sign. A sign, Patrick.
Dude, thank you so much, man. What is the I was trying to think of a great question. Like, what was like the hardest lesson you learned when you got into photography? And maybe what was the easiest lesson you learned, and that you could, tell young photographers watching this?
Let's see. Well, I think some of the hardest lessons would be what do you want to do with your work? You have to kind of define that for yourself. Do you want to make money out of it? Is that something to sustain you as a career, pay your rent, pay your food and all that? Or is it something that you want to pursue as an expression? Or can you manage to do both? And I think the hardest part for me is I think I went into it being the practical Asian that I am. How can I monetize this, right? How can I justify doing something that's fun? And how can I justify this lifestyle? So I, try to monetize it, right? Trying to go into the commercial world of photography, shooting fashion, shooting portraits, whatever I can, right? That's the hard thing. Like any other freelance career in the creative field, that is the hardest thing. That's not something different from anything, pursuing acting, whatever it is that you want to pursue in the creative field. That's just reality. So be ready for that reality, is that you could be the best at what you're doing, and it doesn't mean you're going to automatically get work, because with photography and with acting and the creative arts, it's saturated with a lot of people who want to do the kind of work that you want to do also. So that's always like, and I kind of knew that. I was hoping it would be a little different, because you couldn't see me as a photographer versus the casting director is like, he's not quite right for the role. He's too Asian, or not Asian enough. He's too tall for an Asian. By the way, I'm 6'2", and when I go to these Asian auditions, I'm like the odd man out, because I'm the tallest one in there, right?
Do you play basketball?
I played in high school. I played in high school. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So when I get there, they're like Asian role, and I walk in, they're like, so they're expecting someone else that's a little shorter. So it's sort of like, but yeah, we come in this size too. It's not a lot of us, but some of us do. So I thought going into photography where they couldn't see what I look like, this is going to be different. This is going to be different than acting, right? It's the same thing in terms of pursuing something in a creative field. It's a grind. You just got to keep pushing it. So that was a tough pill to swallow, that realization, also thinking it was going to be a little better, but not necessarily. Silver lining is, though, it's you hang in there with something long enough, something starts to happen. I ended up getting offered a teaching job, and all my former classmates are like, "What? Wait a minute." It's like, if that fool can get a teaching job, I should be able to get a job at this school. I'm like, well, time out. Hold on. I remember your ass being not so serious at school. My work may not have been as good as yours, but I showed up every damn day, and I turned everything in on time, and I was professional about it. So step aside, right? So, and teachers are going to have their reasons for calling like someone like me back and offering me a position, because they saw the intensity. I believe I was pretty intense in terms of wanting to get the most out of the program, just like I was with the acting program. Wherever I went, I wanted to I wanted to be the best version of myself that I could be. Right? I think I want to say this quote. I'm going to misquote him. I forget the actor's name. He says that, a lot of actors make the mistake of trying to be Marlon Brando, especially male actors. That's the wrong way to approach it. You got to be the best Patrick you could be, right? The best Tina you could be, the best Kat you could be. And that's all you could really ask for. And that's where you would shine, actually, because you're not trying to be somebody else. You're being you. And if you could tap into that, that's gold, and people will see that. So that's kind of like, so from the acting part, and then now stepping away from it, I was on set going back to Arizona right there. There's a big tangent here. I'm like, I love what I'm doing here. And this was a role that I've been wanting to play, which was not really specific to any kind of ethnicity. I wasn't happy anymore. I needed to go I need another creative outlet, and photography was that. So that's kind of where I landed, where I am today, with the addition of teaching also as well. And I have to say, we're talking about like representation, opportunities, and all that. Anyone who has in a position of power, especially if you're a person of color, Filipino American, Asian, Black, if you are a person of color in a position of power, you have the ability to change the game. Okay. I'm a teacher. I also curate art shows. And so I have a position to spotlight people who look at the world at a different lens, maybe the way we see the world as well. So I try to do that as much as I can to bring all of us up, to level this playing field that's so been this way for the longest time. And growing up, and I'm kind of going back and forth here, and I apologize. One of the motivations for me to become an actor is because I didn't see enough of this on the screen. Aside from Bruce Lee, I'm like, I grew up with all these people around me, and I don't see any of us, my Latino friends, on the screen represented. And of course, if you talk about percentages and population, it's going to be a small percentage than, say, the white population, but still, it's like, where are movies? Where's entertainment? It's in California. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, well, why can't we be part of this, right? For years. And so that was part of my angry Asian part. Some of that anger I tap into, and it motivates me to do something. And so that kind of helped drive my acting as well, because I didn't want to be Kung Fu Guy number 3. I wanted to be Rollence, the guy next door, period. That's it. There's this movie out, if you guys saw it, with John Cho, called Searching.
Yeah, I love it.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
That's the role that's like nondescript necessarily, with one conversation about their Korean heritage, about a recipe of food, and that was it. And the rest was like a father is looking for his kidnapped daughter, period. And that's it. And I'm thinking,
wait, spoiler, she was kidnapped.
Sorry. Aliens abducted. Area 51 story. Sorry, I'm mixing up my plots. But that is the type of role that I've always wanted to see since I was a kid. I knew this from the longest time. Like, I was a TV kid. I spent way too many hours in front of that boob tube, way too many hours. And even then I realized I don't see myself here. Mm-hmm. I speak the language. I don't have any foreign accent they think that they deem as foreign. Why can't someone like me be in a show? And every time I saw like a guest spot who's Asian somewhere, and I'm like, yes, no, they have an accent. Oh, good for them, they're on the show, but that's not the representation that I'm looking for, right? So I was angry at that, like happy for them to get those roles, but then at the same time, it's like, we got to move forward beyond that, right? So, that's part of my motivation. And so now, with a different vantage point behind the lens, so to speak, behind the camera, I get to control who I cast for these pieces that I want to create. Like the billboards, the work that was on the billboards, 2 women of color, and that was by design. That was not by any accident. That's me casting that, because in reality, that's what I grew up with. And so I want to represent my reality, which is LA reality too. And I felt that was very representative. And for me, to have my Filipino sounding name on a billboard next to two women of color. And I was like, I was, again, tears. One of those things, it's like, this is an amazing opportunity. I gotta remember this. I just gotta just breathe it in and just live it. So that was a really great highlight for me, another milestone. So it was acting, now it's this, and I don't know what else is ahead, but I'm open to anything. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Awesome.
Man, I love that. That's just so inspiring. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna live the best Patrick. She's gonna live the best Kat, best Tina, and you're living your best Rollence right now. Like, what more can we look forward to with what you're doing along the path? And I love that you're staying angry, and angry motivates you, because I'm kind of the same way. Actually, you know what? You do a lot of activism with your work, and you speak through your work, and because it's that anger that you're channeling from. And I've been peeping the Instagram. Recently, we as a Asian, community lost Corky Lee, who is an amazing photographer that captured some brilliant moments of the struggle. Can you talk a little bit on that, as since you're like our first photographer on that's of Asian descent, and that are doing this, and just how important is through the work you're doing, and because you're carrying on his legacy through your work,
right.
In a different mean,
Right.
But can you speak on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important. Like I said, this is going back to how we see our lens, how we see the world. It's going to be different, even if we are Filipino, we're all Chinese, or whatever it is, whatever ethnicity. Our experiences are what make us. And I tell my students this, that every decision you make, how you frame the shot, how you decide to compose, what to include, not to include, it all boils down to your life experiences before you press that shutter. Making all these decisions subconsciously, and you're gonna frame a certain way, have a certain subject in front of you before you press that shutter. And I think it's so important that we have these voices that continue to speak up and not be afraid to speak up, just like Corky Lee did with his work, and I'm continuing with mine. And I think there's nothing wrong with speaking up for other people, because it's only going to help all of us in the end if we just bring all of us together. So when George Floyd happened, man, when I saw that video and woke up in that morning, I can't remember being so angry and sad and so many emotions all at once after seeing that video. And this is during the time where no one wanted to go out. This lockdown, right? This is end of May, and I started seeing on social media, we're gonna have this protest, a peace vigil for George Floyd at the Pasadena City Hall. I live in Pasadena, and I thought, God, do I want to be outside? We're not supposed to be going outside. I haven't shot anything during the whole pandemic because everyone's supposed to be staying inside. I said, fuck it. This is just too important. This is about lives we're talking about here. Yeah. So I went over there, brought my camera, and that was when I felt that this is the right thing to do, to be able to use your voice in any way that you can, and to promote social justice, and just to bring us to that point where we want to stop having to fight for these things anymore. So it's such an important thing to continue this process, whatever platform you're on, and if you're a person of color and you have some sort of power, speak your voice and say your voice, capture your voice, write your voice, do whatever it is to help further the movement, because we can't do this alone. And Corky Lee, and there's Gordon Parks, there's all these people that we look up to, then they're not alone, that we got to just keep moving together. And I think that's one way for us to get to where we want to get to. So for anyone listening, just keep on fighting, just keep on doing what you're doing. Even if you feel like this is, you guys know, Filipino families, Asian families, boy, the conversations can get so heated. We're not in the same, and I'm not on the same page with a lot of my parents and their friends about these issues, and here I am using my voice, and it's a little sad and disappointing for me sometimes, when we can't, come to agreement about humanity. But those are the things that we got to deal and struggle with and deal with it and have those hard conversations with our family. A lot of my friends were like, no, you're crazy, man. Why you want to talk to your family? Why you want to talk about this kind of stuff to them? I said, because it ends here. It ends right here. Okay. It's not going to go any further than this, and I'm going to let them know that it's not going to go any further than me. Right. So you can have your way of thinking. You've seen the world a certain way, and I appreciate everything you've done for bringing me here to this country. Right. You've had to make sacrifices. I understand that. But I'm an American, and this is what we do in this country. We can express ourselves without the fear of, well, martial law during Marcos, that happened. And we were threatened that here too. I'm like, oh, Jesus, is that going to happen here? But like, we're supposed to be able to freely express ourselves without that kind of fear. And we need to put that on check, whoever is running the show all the time. And that's what you all are doing. We're putting these people on check, and that's what we got to continue to do.
Awesome. Yes.
So hype right now.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
It's go outside right now. Just go outside.
Yes. I love it, man. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing. And yeah, I'm part of this group called the Asian Pacific American Artists for Change. And, we're trying to fight those battles and have those hard conversations with family. And so the work you're doing and is just brilliant. And I just want to, again, thank you for that and being that voice as well to help the conversation along. I got one more thing that I'm going to throw it to Kat to go ahead and hit you with.
Yeah, we like to wrap it up since we are the nerds of color with a little nerd check. So what nerdy thing is your specialty? What is it that you love in the nerddom world?
Well, I have to say I'm a nerd with 80s music and maybe 80s pop culture. Some say I'm stuck in that decade. But hey, some of that fashion came around, man. Corduroy pants and all the style. I'm like, it's like, wait a second. I grew up with this kind of stuff. And what's the rule? Once you wore it once, you're not supposed to wear it again. Is that true?
All right. So what is one of your top 80s songs that you can
that's
throw to
really,
us?
now you're gonna put me on the spot with that.
Just one. I didn't say the number one.
Well, I think one song that defined the 80s visually and sound as well was that song from Aha, Take on Me.
Oh,
yes.
When the song is great, but when I saw the video, like this is all before CGI and all that, and I'm like, this is wow. I mean, it combined great 80s music with this music video, which is relatively new at the time, and the way they shot it. So again, something creative like that, it sticks with me. Something that's very artistic. You put your stuff out there, it's going to influence all kinds of people. You never know. And how many years later am I still talking about this video? And you guys know about it too, right? So very influential. The 80s were definitely a big influence on me. That was the era I grew up, and with rich music, the birth of hip hop. Late 70s, but still, I didn't get into it till early 80s, and that was just a game changer for me as well.
I love it.
Awesome.
Rollence, when's your birthday?
My birthday is December 23rd.
December 23rd?
Mm-hmm.
That's Sagittarius?
It's Capricorn on the
cusp?
Yeah. So, I got one gift growing up, but I got over it.
Christmas.
Certain guests we have like astrology type things with Tina. Like there's certain signs.
So what do you is there an aura, some sort of vibe you're getting besides angry?
I was like, you either have to be a Libra or a fire sign. And then Kat was like, well,
don't be telling them that we messaged during the talk. You've just given away our whole MO. Now every guest we get in here is going to be like, they looked away from the screen. Are they trying to guess if I'm a Libra or a Leo? Because sometimes we are. Sometimes we are.
We got some like really big Leo vibes
The confidence.
Yeah,
was,
yeah, it was the confidence and the artsy
Yeah.
fartsy and the artsy fartsy. Sorry, the artsy fartsy was like hitting me hard in the Libra, and I was like, it's got to be some kind of fire. That makes sense if you're on the cusp, but Capricorn, I did not see that.
Right. So I'll address the whole confidence and speaking truth. That was all acting class. You got to remember,
you're such a good actor. You tricked us as to
That's
what your
right.
sign was. That's
yeah,
right.
I only play a confident person. When this is over, I'm gonna go crawl underneath my bed and have cookies. So I was a shy kid right before I took that acting class. Oh, I didn't want to talk to people. I remember having to go up in front of like a classroom before high school to present a project. You know, you get these science projects. I wanted to get up and get the hell out of there. I even got a note from my teacher. Like, she said, Rollence, you just said, thank you very much. And just left. You said, thank you very much, and walk at the same time. They had no idea what the hell you were saying. You just wanted to get the hell out of there. I was like my mental note there from her. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like doing this. But then high school, that acting, that just kind of got me out of my head, basically. And that's what acting class does, to get yourself out of yourself and onto the stage and just to be real for a second in front of people, which is nerve-wracking. Right. So I think that's where you're getting that. It's the acting class, but there's still Capricorn.
You're such a good Capricorn that you're good at pretending not to be a Capricorn. all of the important men in my life are Capricorns. Like, my husband's a Capricorn and my dad is a Capricorn. Right. So like, I get that.
Yeah. But I could be quietly reserved in a scene.
And that's usually that's the Capricorn that I'm used to, is the quiet reserve.
Yeah.
Until you light their fire. And then they're like, oh my God, Dad, shut up. But that's awesome.
Rollence, again, thank you for this amazing conversation. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for your activism. Thank you for joining our ShoPowSho family and sharing your story. You are always welcome back again with any other thing you have coming on. You're part of our family now. And if you could just let them know, let our people watching know how they can reach out to you online and all that. And I'll also have it in the description below, but just from you before we let you go.
You can reach me at rollence.com. And that's right, I got the URL because no one's got my name, or at least I got it before anyone else got it. ROLLENCE.com. And then you can go Rollence_photo at Instagram. And you'll see anything, especially on my Instagram page. If I have any upcoming virtual galleries, I also curate, like I said, any kind of shows I'm curating, that'll be on there. But I want to thank all of you, Kuya P, Tina, Kat, Salamat. Thank you so much for allowing me to be in your space to help all of us progress in this direction, which is forward.
Awesome. Salamat po, Kuya. Appreciate you.
Salamat.
Boom, there you go. Rollence Patugan, an amazing guest. And if you check out his work, I know you'll be inspired. It's brilliant, and it showcases us as a people, as a community, as people of color. And just go check it out, man. Go follow his Instagram. Do it now. And yeah, just do it now, because it's just so brilliant. And ladies, what do you think of that?
Oh, that was great. I feel so energized and inspired. I feel like we always say representation matters, because woo, it does, and how important it is to live your truth. Woo, it is. But he really kind of delved into like that connection between identity and art, and then in turn representation, and how like, yeah, representation matters, but why? And it matters because it validates our identity, and being able to see yourself in art, being able to create art, is just that way of that truth and identity coming through. And I felt like that was almost like the bridge between like representation mattering and why it matters. And yes.
How about you, Kat?
Yeah, it was great talking to him for all the same reasons, but also like it was so impressive to talk to somebody who's had like kind of 3 major career pivot points and like and along the development path. I mean, you know, he said he was still a young man, but most people aren't in their 20s, have their steady job kind of pop with the .com bubble and then go, you know what, stable acting. and then to go, I'm getting solid on this. I think I'll try photography. Like just and to be like good at all these things. It's just it's extra Asian hustle, right?
Yes. And I love I'm sorry, Tina.
No, just how inspiring it is and just how much we love to see it. So.
Yeah. And one of the segments that stuck on, I want to go back and hear what he said, because he said, like, you know, when he was in high school and like, your kids will still do it. Remember how like when we always bring up that conversation? We didn't even have to ask it because he brought that up.
Yeah.
Like,
it doesn't go away. It just gets delayed.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Ooh. I loved that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's beautiful.
So that was one of the best ones we got in regards to that conversation that we have as kids and going to college and figuring out our path. And, you know, so good. That was amazing. Yeah, it's like after sex type stuff with me right now, because it's just that glow. I feel blessed. This is a great one, y'all.
I feel like the things that he was saying kind of spoke to you.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of like where you are in life and what you're trying to do.
I needed that.
For sure.
This was great. Thank you, Rollence. Thank you, Loy. Shout out to Loy Lee.
Yes, thank you, Loy.
Loy Lee Comedy, the Asian King in comedy. Thank you, bro. This was a great one, man. He's the one that brought us our first guest. Loy gave us our first guest in Edwin San Juan. He gave us Rollence Patugan. Now he's got to keep on scoring, man. You keep on giving us winners.
Go fly somewhere and keep meeting Asians on planes.
for our benefit specifically.
Asians on a plane. I love it.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Let's let them know how they can check us out and reach out to us. Online and everything.
Okay. I'm Cataphoric. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. I also help run the ShoPowSho TikTok. If you want to get a little bit more behind the scenes, you can also check out our Patreon and support us, or just buy us a coffee.
I am Viva Valentina. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at viva.valentina and on Twitter and chess.com at Viva Valentina XO.
Yes. Check out, follow, support, reach out to the amazing Ates. I love you both so much. Y'all just continuously make my day when we do this. Love y'all. Cataphoric, Viva Valentina. I am Kuya P, the Adobro. You can follow me at Strange Since 1977 and at Temple Far East. Also at the NRW and at New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world. And of course, where we spotlight us as POCs within that nerd culture at the Nerds of Color. Love y'all. This has been a great one again. Thank you, Rollence Patugan, for joining us. Mahakita, salamat. We are out of here.
Mahakita din.
Deuces.
Oh, mouse cat.
Yeah, I know. She popped right up.
This is Rollence. I'm going to be on the ShoPowSho. I am a photographer and artist based out in Los Angeles. Come check it out. Hey, this is Rollence Patugan. I'm going to be on the ShoPowSho. And my Filipino heritage is important to me because of the food. Are you kidding me? It's the food, right? It's got to be the food. All that food from house parties. And of course, the aunties and uncles singing karaoke.